All right, so this will be my permanent record. All right, so welcome everybody tonight. So the subject tonight is going to be on Streamlit. It's a way you can build interactive websites around your Python code. So didn't really do an introduction for me, but I was just say that I run a user group here in town called the JAX Node user group. And we focus mainly on JavaScript, TypeScript, and Node.js, but we also cover other subjects as well. So we've had presentations on security and penetration testing. We've done other languages. We did a Pythonic-like language called Mojo not too long ago. That's a pretty interesting project in itself. And we've also done, I believe, Golang and microservices and Kubernetes. So we cover a lot of stuff that's like in the same ecosphere as Node.js. I'm sorry? Oh, okay.
I just know what that ping is.
Yes, we do cover React.js. Thanks, Steve. All right.
We've covered a lot of those here too, so and I have no problem with that.
All right. A little bit more about me. I just mentioned that I run the JAX Node user group. I'm currently an application architect for a company called Pragmatic Works, where we do software training. And actually, some of the things that I'm speaking on tonight are related to the types of training that we do at Pragmatic Works. I am not a regular Python user. The languages I typically use are, C#, Swift, JavaScript, TypeScript, Objective-C, Kotlin, Java, and a lot of SQL. And I have a blog where I blog about this stuff, not as frequently as I used to, but I try to get on there at least 4 or 5 times a year to kind of talk about some of the same subjects I talk about when I present at user groups. I also have a YouTube channel, which pretty much covers the same stuff that's on my blog. The YouTube channel is called the Polyglot Engineer. And I also, all the code tonight is actually already up on my GitHub page. There's a repo for it. And I also kind of micro blog about this stuff, either on X, either with the JAX node or the Polyglot Engine 1 handles. And so the Polyglot Engine 1 is more of a general programming type one, whereas JAX node is specific to stuff that we cover with the JAX node user group. So essentially, last month I did a presentation on Android development, and I had a picture of a dumpster fire talking about the Android operating system. And so I think a lot of people that are getting into web development probably feel the same way about the tooling around doing web development. And so that in order to do web development, traditionally, you had to know HTML, you had to know JavaScript, you had to know CSS, but there's all these ancillary, tools and frameworks that people wind up using. So, for instance, my day job, I do a lot of React development in my day job, and one of the issues there is that we have a software that we use for doing our linting. We take all of our React code, which is technically a JSX syntax. It's not pure JavaScript syntax, and we have to transpile that. And so we use tooling for doing that. And so one of the common problems I think a lot of people that are getting into web development run into is tool fatigue. And so just to get started to do your quote unquote hello world, there's actually a fair amount that you have to get familiar with. And so a lot of people that are, even people that have experience programming, don't like doing web development just because of the tooling that's involved for doing a lot of web application development. So what is Streamlit? So think of Streamlit as like a very simple way of being able to take your data and be able to present it onto the web, right? And so it's a simple web application framework for building websites around your data. And it's a tool built mainly in Python. It actually does have hot reloading. So if you're not familiar with hot reloading, that's the concept is you can go ahead and start making changes to your code and see it immediately reflected in the website that you're trying to write. And it creates web apps without you really having to know HTML, CSS, or JavaScript. So if you're just want to get something out onto the web really quickly, you're already familiar with Python, this is an excellent tool. So some of the features here, it's an open source framework. It's actually built on top of the React framework. So I mentioned before that I do React development, but all the components essentially for building out your web applications with Streamlit is actually done in React behind the scenes. So it allows you to very easily create like a UI like around your Python programs. So it's also a great way for being able to display and working with data, and it's also great for visualizing data. So just get a show of hands, like how many people here like are in the data science machine learning space? All right, so that's fair. I'd say maybe about 1/3 of the people. How many people here would say that they are web developers? They do web development. Okay, about the same. All right. So that's actually, I think that's a good kind of way of looking at this. Is that there's a lot of people that want to be able to publish stuff very quickly, but they may not be interested in having to learn all of the tooling around with traditional web development. So some of the types of applications that people will typically write with Streamlit. Actually, before I go through the list, I'm going to talk a little bit about how I actually found out about this framework. And so a couple of years ago, I got really interested in fintech. I was actually working for a fintech company, and I came across a YouTube channel called Part-Time Larry. And it's a great, if you're into like working with data with Python or doing data science, it's a really fun channel to watch, because one of the things that he does on his channel is that he will do like whole things about like how to use the interactive brokers API, how to actually take data off of Reddit and like mine it for interesting information or trends that you might find. So he's actually the reason why I actually found out about this framework, because he started, he does most of his coding in Python, and so he started building out like dashboards using Streamlit, and that's a really interesting framework. And so one of the things that I did was I was like, well, I'm not like a regular, like I was doing all this stuff in JavaScript, and I was like, I'm not like a regular Python user. I was like, I wonder if there's like a similar framework like this, like in the Node ecosystem. And I couldn't find anything that was as good as this in the Node ecosystem. And so I was like, this is actually one of the things I find attractive about the Python community and the tooling around Python, is that they have a lot of tools like this that make it really easy and approachable to kind of accomplish tasks that should be simple using frameworks like this. And so that's how I found out about this framework. But when it comes to actually using a framework, if you're trying to create like a very simple like interactive app, it makes it very easy to do that. If you're doing anything with data science applications, building out dashboards, you need to have some type of presentation layer around the machine learning applications that you're doing. Even if you're doing stuff with chatbots and AI, it's got built-in stuff for working with that. I have a demo of that tonight. And it's also great for if you need to visualize your data. They have a lot of examples and stuff how you can do that in their documentation. So this is kind of like a dirt simple Streamlit application. So if you look over on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see here that that they're just importing in the Streamlit library as ST. And then now that they have that ST or Streamlit object, there's essentially calling a method on there called title and saying my Streamlit app. And then they're doing an ST write called hello world. And that is then creating the web page that you're seeing right over there on the right-hand side. So it's literally that simple. Something else that's neat about Streamlit is that they support Markdown. So Markdown has become kind of like the simple way or easy way of being able to do HTML without having to know HTML. But very common syntax. If you're doing anything with GitHub as an example, Markdown is kind of like the built-in way that you do your formatting on GitHub. But more importantly, if you want to do like a H1 or a header tag, you just do # and then it will take that text that you've put on that line and put it inside of an H1 tag. And same thing if you want to do H2, you just do 2 pounds and that's a H2. If you want to do like list items with bullet points, you can just do like an asterisk at the beginning of the line, and it actually will take that line and put it into a bullet point. Unordered list, yes.
That's unordered. Ordered list, you do 1, 2, and 3.
Yes. All right. So I talked a little bit about st.write earlier, or the write function, and that is what's considered a magic function inside of Streamlit. Basically what that means is that if you ever use the console.log or the print statement in Python, you essentially can take just about any type of object or data, pass it into that function, and it'll do its best to output it as best as possible. So in other words, you can even do something like you can create or import like a table using pandas, output that, and it actually will automatically put that into a table that you can use. So as I was just saying, it's got built-in support for working with pandas. Pandas is a great library in Python for working with numerical data and tables and arrays, that sort of thing. It's also got built-in support for doing bar charts and line charts. And the charts are also interactive with this, which is pretty nice. This is actually a pretty simple framework. You can do multiple pages, and the way that works is that any pages that you want to have inside of your Streamlit application, you have to create a folder or a directory called pages, and then you would put your actual separate pages inside of that folder. And so it's essentially it just creates a very simple structure. And then it creates a menu on the left-hand side of the page where you can go through and essentially navigate through to those different pages. You can't have nested pages. That's one of the downsides of using that feature. Layouts, Streamlit by default displays every element sequentially. You do have the ability to create columns. And the way that works is there's a columns function that you can use. And if you are trying to output, let's say, 3 columns as an example, you can specify 3, and it actually will create a tuple with 3 different objects in it that you can then use to add items to those individual columns. And you just add each element one at a time to the column. As far as like input controls, they've got built-in buttons. There's a link button, download button. They also have like input fields like a checkbox, radio button, color picker, select, multi-select. And then they also have filters, sliders, and toggles, all the different types of controls you expect to have in a traditional web application. And then to run your applications, it's actually quite simple. You just go into the command line and you type Streamlit run whatever the Python file is that you have your Streamlit application in, and it will just go ahead and create an application or create a web application that you can then consume inside the browser. So in that previous example, that's what that would look like. And if you look at this, this is actually running, think of this as like running in a dev mode. If you look at the top right-hand corner, one of the things that you'll see is that there is a rerun button, and there's also a always rerun button. So you can set up like your hot module reloading, so to speak, by just have it always rerun. So every time you go and you save a change into your application, that change will be reflected inside of the web application. So some of the other CLI commands that you can use, you can do Streamlit init, which will init a new application. There's a Streamlit docs, which will just take you to their documentation. There's also a Streamlit config show, which shows your configurations that you can use. And they also have a command in here for doing a cache clear that you can also use. So if you need to clear out your cache, it'll let you do that. As far as publishing this, so developing it and running on your laptop or your desktop is one thing, but if you want your coworkers to be able to see it, you have to be able to publish that. And there's a couple different ways you can do that. And so one of the things that's nice about Streamlit, and this is where they actually have a business around the framework, is that they have a Streamlit hosting service. And so one of the things they do is they actually have a deploy button, and you can actually take your Streamlit application and you can deploy it directly to the Streamlit. If you don't want to do that, like you consider security kind of an important thing, you want to be able to host it yourself, either internally or on the cloud. You can also package it up inside of a Docker container and just take that Docker image and push that out to whatever, if you're using AWS or one of the many others out there, you can do that as well. So let's do a quick demo here. So I'm going to come to VS Code. All right. So I don't know if everybody can read that. Can everybody read this okay? I can blow it up a little bit. Nope, too small. All right, let's try that. How's that? Is that better?
That's
Now I can.
Okay. Yeah, this projector.
Is everybody okay if I turn the lights down a little bit?
This
Is that gonna
must be.
hurt anybody up here?
We're gonna turn the lights off here in the auditorium. I'm gonna take a swig of water. All right. It's really dark. All right.
Too much.
Only we got a spotlight for David.
I'm fine. Nobody needs to see me. Okay. So here's a. Let's do this. Let's actually create a new file here.
Well, if you left the lights under the stairs are highlighted.
Oh, that's wrong. Force of habit. Apologize. I have to do pi.
Sorry, I'm still learning how the light switches.
That's all right. I just added the wrong file extension. Okay. So let's do this. I'm just going to import in Streamlit. And if you don't have Streamlit installed, it's actually pretty easy to install. All you have to do is do a pip install Streamlit, and it'll install the package that you need in order to be able to use Streamlit. It also, if you want to use Miniconda or Conda or virtual environment, that's probably a good idea as well. But
Explain real quick what Conda is for those who don't know.
sure, yeah, essentially, I just had this conversation with my nephew. So my nephew just started going to the University of Florida. He's doing his junior year at the University of Florida, taking the finance program, and he's taking a bunch of different like business and finance classes. And one of the classes he's taking is actually in financial data. And he said it's like, oh, I had to install Python for this course. We're actually using Python for this course. So I said, oh, interesting. I asked him, are you using Anaconda or Miniconda? And he's like, oh, I'm using Anaconda. So they actually have all the students there in that class already set up using Anaconda for essentially doing like managing the environment and for managing their packages. And so one of the things that's very common or very necessary, I should say, to do when you're working with like multiple different Python applications is that you may be using like a different version of Python as your runtime. You may be using different versions of specific modules from pip as well. And so one of the things you can do is you can create either like a virtual environment, or you can use Conda to set up like your own environment that you can switch back and forth between them. So one of the things Conda will let you do is you can actually create like a brand new environment from scratch, and then you can just install and use like a specific version of Python, a specific version of Streamlit, that sort of thing. You can activate that and deactivate that so you can use different environments or different, I'd say, Conda environments for working for your application. So in this case, I'm actually using Conda, mini Conda specifically to do this.
How is it different from virtual environment?
So virtual environments are typically, when you set those up, they're typically set up per application project. So you have a folder where you have your Python application. Typically what you'll do is you'll set up like a VMV folder or a .vmv folder. It's a subdirectory inside of your Python project. And then all of the, specifically like the specific versions of different modules that you might be using will get installed just for that virtual environment. So you can go back and forth between your different Python projects, and they will have their own like virtual environment. And you still have to like activate them and deactivate them. But the difference with Conda is Conda will let you use like a specific version of Python as well. And it's set up so that it's managed for the whole, so you can have multiple Python projects, and then you can use Conda to set a specific version of Python that you want to use, as well as, if you need to install like a specific version of Streamlit or Pandas or something like that, it'll let you do that. There's a couple other tools that are like that in the Python ecosystem. I'm by far means I'm no expert on that. What you're seeing tonight is about the height of my Python expertise. So I'm by no means anywhere as good as most of the people in this room. But I was so inspired by this tool that I'm going to sit down and take some time and actually learn this tool. So this is an example. No problem. So here I've just come in here and I've created a Streamlit, and I'm using Copilot in Visual Studio Code here. So it's already gone in here and said, hey, you probably the probability that you want to do an st.title and st.write. It's just said here you're doing a hello world. So that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm actually doing a hello world. So now if I come back to the terminal and I say Streamlit run demo.py, not JS, and it just launched this. All right. So now if I come back, to Visual Studio Code, and let's say I want to change this, as I was saying before, this write function is actually a magic function. So I can just come in here. I can put a bunch of numbers in here. Come back to the browser here, and you can see right here these have changed. So it's asked me if I want to rerun or always rerun. I'm gonna say always rerun. So now it's outputting that number directly onto the page. So if I come back out, and let's say I want to change this again. Let's say I want to take this, and I want to actually make an array of numbers here. So let's come over here, use my square brackets. I could say 6, 3, 78, 20, and maybe 1. All right. I'm going to save. If I come back to the browser here, now you can see that it's actually outputted that array, but it's done it in kind of like a dump style. So for instance here, it's not only showing me all the numbers that are in this array, it's actually showing me the positions in that array. So without really having to know anything, like I could also take like a JSON object and put that in there, and it would output the JSON object. So I'm gonna go ahead and kill that. And there we go. Kill. There we go. All right. So the next one I was going to show here is I have this main.ps, and this actually has some user input in here. And so the thing I like about this example is that this is a very simple, this is only 7 lines of code, but this actually has some interactivity in here where I can type something in and then get the result back out. So if I come back out here and I say Streamlit, let me move this down a little bit. Streamlit run, yeah, here we go. We'll say main.py. Okay, so now we have that field that I just added in here, and I'm going to say hi there and enter. And now it's just gone ahead and it's applied that and added that into the essentially element underneath the form field. So that, once again, that's actually kind of a simple example. But I think where this tool becomes really useful is when you start actually working with data. So if you're actually pulling data from, let's say, a CSV, or you're pulling data from like a database as an example, like tabular data, this is something it actually excels at. So this next example here, you can see here that I'm importing Streamlit, but I'm also importing pandas, right? And so what I'm actually doing here is I'm using pandas to actually load a CSV file. And I just want to write that the data frame back out to the web page. So if I come over here, and this is PD sample, I'm going to say Streamlit run PD sample.py. And it's actually taken that table data from the CSV, and it's actually put it in a nicely formatted table. It gives me the option here where if I want to, I can actually expand this to the full size of my web page. I can also come over here and I can actually sort based off of the first name, last name, email, or the date of birth as an example. And it even has a download button. So if I want to let my users be able to download this CSV, they can download it. I was able to do that essentially with one line of code without having to do like anything special. And the screen just flickered. Apologize about that. All right. So that's all right. So they have an expression in Russia, which is it's not how well the bear dances, it's that the bear dances at all. So I'm just happy the bear's dancing at all. All right. So the next one, I thought, let's do something a little bit more interesting. So in this example right here, I've actually created a chatbot that actually works with OpenAI. So this is a little bit longer. This is about 40 lines of code. But essentially what it's doing here is it's using some built-in functionality in the Streamlit framework. So I'm just going to kind of go through and describe what each one of these lines here is doing. And so I'm actually just importing and using the OpenAI Python framework. And then what I'm doing here is I'm creating a client, and I am passing in the API key that I'm going to be using for this. If you go up to the GitHub repo for this page, the key's not in there. But the way that you would set that up is Streamlit actually has a secrets.toml file that you can use, and then I just put the secret for that inside of there. So that's how it's getting the OpenAI key there. You could also use like an environment variable to pull it out that way as well. And so then for the next thing I'm doing here is that I'm actually checking the session state. The session state is kind of like a way of managing your state with your Streamlit application. And so here I'm actually using the GPT-5 model, which is the latest model from OpenAI. And then what I'm doing is I have taken that session state object and I am adding a messages array to it. And so what this is doing is it's just taking kind of a duck typed array as the basis point for it, and is assigning it to the session state. And then right below that, I have a couple different Streamlit objects that I'm using here. So there's one called chat message, which is essentially it's like a way that you can output like a chat message, and then you can also pass in markdown. So I'm actually using the markdown function in here as well. And then I think I mentioned a little bit earlier the Elvis operator. So here we're actually using the Elvis operator to check to see if there's any chat input. So this is another object that's created for you by the framework. And then after that, I'm just coming in here and I am appending the user to that. And then I'm taking the prompt and I'll be adding that to the chat message. And then the next thing right here is we have an assistant, and then assistant essentially is tied to this client, which is the OpenAI client. And so what I'm doing here is I'm creating a stream. And what's important about that is that when you work with a lot of these large language models, as an example, because they have to process, very large amounts of data in order to be able to come back with an answer, and they're using GPUs that are, melting to try to answer all these questions. It can take a while to get a response back. And so what they typically do with their APIs is that rather than give you the whole response back at once, which you can do, it actually will stream that out like token per token or word for word, so that the user can start seeing a response before it's finished. You've probably seen this if you've used ChatGPT or you've used Anthropic or whatever. When you are chatting with it or you're passing it a prompt, it'll give you a response back, but it's not immediate. It starts streaming the response out. And so this API allows you to do that same streaming. And then right here at the bottom here, we're taking the response, and then we are just writing that out to the messages right here. So I'm going to run this example, and let's see if I can remember it. Let's do ls here, and this is the PyJax chat. So I'm going to do Streamlit run PyJax chat.py. There we go. All right, so this is our PyJax chat. So now I can come in here and I can ask it a question. And it's actually using the same model that you use if you go out to ChatGPT, as an example. So I'm going to ask it kind of the hello world prompt type question. Why is the sky blue? Oops. Enter. And we'll see how good my internet connection is. It should start streaming. There it is. It's just streamed out the response. And so it comes right here. It talks about Rayleigh scattering, signs a mix of colors when it passes through the atmosphere, tiny molecules scatter shorter wavelengths, blue, violet, this sort of thing. So that did exactly what I expected it to do. So these are all kind of like very easy, simple examples of how you can kind of utilize and use Streamlit to create very simple, very interactive applications. But for the last example here, I wanted to show something that's kind of like the kitchen sink type of example. And so I have an example here. I'm going to open it up here, and I have this widgets gallery here. And so we look at this. This is kind of encompasses like almost like all the different like controls and functionality that you can use inside of a Streamlit application. So I'm going to run that so we can see what that looks like. So let's do, oops, Streamlit, run widgets gallery py. There we go. And there we go. And this has got a whole bunch of stuff in here. But one of the things you'll notice in here is that something that's very common that you'll see with like JavaScript frameworks, like if you're using like React or you're using Angular or one of the Svelte, one of the many other types of interactive web frameworks, is that you usually will have like an example of like an increment counter where you can go through and you just essentially update the state. Like every time you push a button, it increments it by 1. So if I come over here and start hitting increment, you can see here that it's showing me what the session state's actually looking like, but it's actually also showing me this counter here. So every time I come here and I click this, it's going ahead and it's updating the counter here just below it. And the same thing here, we've got sliders in here where we can come through here and update. You can see we've got drop downs. You can download some sample text. There's a button here which is using the open link button. So if you need to point somebody to documentation, you can do that using this button. Not sure how well this works here, but they have a dark mode. Everything's on dark mode on this Mac because I run it in dark mode. But they also have text input, passwords, text area. So they have all these different UI examples here, different things you can use. They also have like example forms and that sort of thing. And they even have that chat API that I was talking about. They've got they have an example of that in here as well. So I included that. That's on the GitHub repo for the presentation that I did tonight. So I have all this up here as well. All right, so let me go back to the slides here. So just to kind of give a summary of what we talked about tonight. So Streamlit, I think, is a great framework for building simple interactive apps, especially if you don't have like a lot of experience around a lot of the existing web framework tooling. If you need to do something more sophisticated, like if you need to have like actual routing, if you need like a regular framework, you can use something like Flask or Next.js as an example. You can also, if you need to have pixel-specific control over your UI, then this is not the framework that you want to use for this. This is for building, very simple like web applications. And then if you need to build something fast, Streamlit is a great option. And so that's one of the things I had interested for. So I figured, if there's something I need to be able to do with Python, I need to be able to create like a dashboard really quick. This is an excellent way of doing that using Python. Are there any questions? Yes, Steve.
In terms of how do you see it being used, mostly for like rapid prototyping or like for utility functions, or do you see this being real from the industry at all?
So I think that where I see this mainly being used, I see it mainly being used for people that need to, people that are, I say specifically are working with either in data science or the machine learning world, and need to be able to build something really quickly, something to prototype, especially something they might use internally inside of their company. If you want to publish this out to the cloud, have it available to the web, you can do that. I have not played around with it enough to say whether or not how secure it is. With you can do authentication with it, but I have not tried to use it for doing that. But I think for doing things where you need to kind of prototype something very simple, I could see like people, like there's a company here in town called NLP Logics, and they do a lot of machine learning AI type of work there. And they also have, a number of people there that are like really good at Python, but they may not be experts at .NET, as an example. And I think this is a good tool where they could start building out, let's say, a dashboard or prototype something like you were mentioning before about like building like a prototype. They can kind of prototype it using Streamlit. And then if you need to do something that was, let's say, more of like a commercial product, then you probably want to go through and do the work of actually building out like a full-on web application with all the ceremony that goes around with that. Yes.
Do you have the ability to change the default styling, or is what it is?
So it's very limited with what you can do with the styling. So I did not get a chance to delve to. I checked into a little bit, but it's pretty much what you see is what you get with the styling. I think you can change the fonts or something like that, but other than that, it's pretty simple. When it comes to like doing the layouts, for example, I think that's like a perfect example of where one of the things that was actually kind of hard for a long time with CSS was actually like creating columns. and being able to display things in columns. And that's something they make very easy to do, but you don't have a lot of, like, you can't go in there and really control the padding or, you know, how things kind of relate to each other. So it's very limited. If you need that, then you need to look at like a more traditional framework for doing that. All right, I'm going to check online and see if there's any questions online. Does anybody online have any questions they want to ask? Okay. Nope. All righty. So with that, I just want to thank everybody who's online that watched the presentation, and then also thank everybody for coming out that's actually here in the auditorium tonight that's put up with me not knowing how to use the projector and seeing the flashing of the projector.
And we figured it out.
Yes. So I did want to just plug one thing while I'm here. So as I mentioned before, I run a user group called JAX Node, where we kind of talk about stuff in a similar vein as this. And I'm actually fortunate because I have 2 speakers lined up for this month and next month. That's not me, which is always good. I know things are going well when I'm not the speaker. There's a startup here in town called PyJax, where they're actually using AI to do a lot of like automated software creation. And they have a tool that's called PyJax for building out software with that. And we are going to start having our meetings this month at Interactive Resources, which is here in the South Point area, but it's on the other side of JTB. And they've got a nice facility there that's kind of like in the back. They've got like a little basketball court back there as well, indoor basketball court. And then so the following month after in October, Paul Elliott, some of you might know Paul Elliott. He's been in the Jacksonville community for a long time, developer community. And one of the things he's been interested in talking about was like, people they're trying to get jobs or maybe trying to change jobs or whatever. He's going to be doing a presentation talking about like career development, and as a software engineer, how do you either get the job or move on. There's been a little bit more unemployment in our industry than I would have liked. So anything I think that helps people find the next gig, I think is a good topic. So we'll be presenting on that in October, and then we are going to be off until January of next year. So those are the 2 presentations we have for the rest of the year. I'm sorry? Oh yeah, we are on Meetup. You can go to I think we're JaxNode UG or user group on Meetup. We're listed in the tech user groups in Jacksonville. Please do, yes. All right. As far as the slides and the source code and stuff like that, I'll be posting links on Meetup so that if you want to take a look at what I have, I'll make that available after the presentation tonight. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.
You know where you want to go for after?
I was thinking maybe we just go to BJ's.
Okay, so after the meeting, we're gonna go all meet at BJ's Brew House over there off of Gate Parkway and Crossroads over there. But it's about a